Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the Zack Scriven podcast, and in today's episode, we're talking to Mike Martinez. He is a customer success manager at Rockwell Automation, and I actually met him at LinkedIn Local Milwaukee in August of last year. So I was really excited to bring him on the podcast and share his story and share his perspective. Being a Rockwell employee, we talk about Rockwell a lot on this channel among all industrial automation leaders within the space. So it's really interesting conversation. I think you guys will enjoy it. But I first wanted to say thank you to our sponsor, 4.0 Solutions, who sponsored the entire month of the Automation Month. And in each episode, we're going over a best-in-class product as recommended by 4.0 Solutions. So today's product is best-in-class SCADA, MES, and Rapid Application Development Environment Platform. That's Factory Studio by Tatsoft. So thank you, Tatsoft. Thank you, 4.0 Solutions. Thank you, listeners, and enjoy the show. So, how's your afternoon?
It's going well, thank you. How's yours?
It's going pretty good. I just got off the phone with another Mike, Michael Moreno, and we're talking about content and marketing and kind of what I've been working on within the industrial automation industry, and so that was really cool. And now here I am talking to you.
Very cool.
Also in the industrial automation industry at Rockwell. So for anyone who doesn't know, Mike and I, we met at LinkedIn Local Milwaukee last August.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool. And we stayed connected on LinkedIn. Put out that I was having the podcast, you booked, and here we are talking. So I want to talk about your story in the industry and, just take it back to the beginning, like when you decided to get into this industry, and then we'll kind of see where that leads us, and we'll talk about, anything really.
Cool. No, thanks for having me. And I'm happy to be on the podcast. For me, getting into the automation industry, it happened pretty quickly. I was studying mechanical engineering in school, and I took a class on microcontrollers and mechatronics. And what I became really interested in was we had a really cool final project where we had spent the semester talking about all of these different technologies, learning to program different microcontrollers and understanding their various applications. But we had a final project where we had to use mechatronics to design something that actually added value for people that someone could use on a day-to-day basis. So getting away from the theory and getting into actually looking at the value that people can see out of these technologies today. And so one of my classmates and I designed this really simple device that it was an ornament, and if you hung this ornament on your Christmas tree, and whether the light was green, yellow, or red would tell you from across the room without you having to get down on your hands and knees how much water was in the base of your Christmas tree. And I remember presenting this to the class, and it was honestly probably one of the simpler projects that people had done, but everyone, way beyond some of the really complex code that some of the students wrote, everyone in the room saw how this is something that they could actually see themselves using, regardless of how simple it was. And so having started to do some work with Rockwell and learn about Rockwell Automation in my classes, I thought what better place to start my career than a company that works really heavily in that IoT and mechatronics space, but really with every industry imaginable. So that was kind of how I got started, and here I am today, a couple of years into working with Rockwell.
How'd you first get in with Rockwell? What was that process like?
So I actually got in with Rockwell. I think it was my junior or senior year of college. I was taking. I've always been really interested in entrepreneurship, and I think that's where we kind of hit it off because we both have this interest in the industry and in the automation industry, but we also have a really keen interest in understanding how that helps people, and that's a little bit of what I just touched on. But so I was actually doing an entrepreneurship minor at Penn State, and was visited by one of Rockwell's sales engineers. And he came to talk to the class. It was an entrepreneurship class. It was a business class, but it was mostly people with technical majors and mostly engineers. he came to talk about how people that get that intersection of a human need with and how to meet that with technology could really be successful at a company like Rockwell, where we go out and essentially are advisors to our customers to help them understand how they can take these new technologies that they're hearing about on LinkedIn or on Google, and people who are saying, machine learning sounds great, but how can I actually make that a part of the way that I do business? He came to talk to us about how that's really what we as Rockwell do, is to help our customers really create that journey map of where they want to be, and help them implement new technologies along the way. And so that's how I got in. Started out with a marketing internship with Rockwell, and then have gone through several engineering roles, and now I'm moving over into customer success. So that's how I got started, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been great.
Awesome, man. That sounds very interesting. So tell me about customer success. What's that like?
So I actually just started in this in customer success a couple of weeks ago, and as Rockwell is moving more and more towards, if you're familiar with like servitization, I'm sure that that's something that you hear a lot about. Taking the products and technologies. I like to use the cloud technologies as an example, as something that pretty much everyone has interacted with. Back in the day when you were buying an iPhone or an Android device, every company was, or a laptop for that matter, every company was trying to get you to buy more hard drive space every time you bought a new device. And now we're seeing that with iCloud and other cloud platforms, these companies are recognizing that they can add value to customers as a service rather than just through their physical product. And so as Rockwell moves more in that direction, we recognize that besides just having those salespeople to go out and be that trusted advisor to a customer to kind of help them identify opportunities for implementing new technologies, but that once they implement those technologies, being able to continue that process with someone in our business to measure the progress that they've made on those initial business goals that they had, that maybe led one of our business development leads or one of our salespeople to identify an opportunity for, say, infrastructure as a service. So virtualization and remote monitoring of network infrastructures as a service. We can go and sell that to a customer, a 5-year contract, but unless we continue to work with them along the way to make sure that they're being successful with that, make sure that we understand and identify the business goals that they have that they're trying to achieve through purchase of a subscription like that, we can really help them achieve far more value if we continue to work with them along the way. And so that's my job as a customer success manager, is to work with sales to understand what our customers are trying to accomplish, and then working with the customer one-on-one to make sure that we're helping them do that and pivot where we need to and help them grow.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I've said before that the future of system integration is within products and productize. What was the word that you used? Productizing.
Servitization. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it actually goes both ways. So you can productize services, and you can I guess servitize products as well. So it kind of goes both ways, and I think the lines are kind of becoming blurred.
Right. Where before just installing these systems, was very labor-intensive process, configuring them, and that was the product itself. But now that's becoming more commoditized. The value is using these systems to actually improve the processes of which they're controlling.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny to hear, especially working with our OEMs. So for those that are listening to this that aren't familiar with you kind of hear OEM when you're talking about buying parts, if it's a replacement screen for your iPhone, that type of thing. But in the industrial automation industry, a lot of the time when we talk about OEMs, we're talking about the businesses that make the machines that make the products. So I like to use the example of say a company that makes diapers, right? You go and you buy a big pack of diapers at Costco for your kid. That company, let's say that's Kimberly-Clark, that's making making the diapers that you're buying off of shelves. Well, someone sells them a machine that makes diapers. And so, whether that's a diaper machine or something that is a packaging machine that's wrapping the food that you buy on shelves, or really any of those machines. We call those OEM machines. And so it's funny to see how we are changing the way that we do business with our end user customers, but also the way that our OEM customers are looking to change the way that they do business with their customers. And it's exactly what you're saying selling a machine is no longer what end users are just looking for. You know, they're not looking to just buy a machine; they're looking for that outcome. So I'm hearing, people in the industry say, for years, to give a household example, for years consumers have bought ovens, right? Well, there are companies out there that are probably starting to think about how can, instead of selling you an oven, how can they sell you heat as a service? They're selling you reliability. They're telling you that whatever happens with your oven, if it's no longer providing heat, then they're no longer providing that service, and they'll do whatever they need to do to change that. And so whether that's the number of diapers that a machine can produce an hour, or the number of bags of green peas that a packaging machine can package in an hour, we're hearing more and more customers saying, how can we essentially sell the outcome that our end users are looking for as a service? And so it's kind of interesting to see that on the flip side of our customers trying to do that as well.
Yeah, I'm working with an OEM right now that services the water treatment industry, and they primarily focus in treatment of frac fluid and in the oil and gas industry, and they're starting to see that shift as well. Like leveraging IoT technologies to not only just sell a machine, but really, like you said, sell the outcome that they provide, which is clean water. And they have their own ecosystem, like of apps and data and dashboards and predictive analytics that go along with that. So they're really selling like the information, like data is their new product that they're selling. Really, it's pretty interesting to see that transformation happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one of the things that we're doing at Rockwell, and being I guess a self-described people person, one of the things that I've always found really interesting about IoT is not just the Internet of Things, but really like the Internet of people and skills, and the way that we can connect people to make processes that we're all trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis more fluid. And so, you mentioned, remote monitoring. So with remote monitoring and analytics, one of the things that I've been really interested in is I hear from our customers all the time that they have these skills gaps. They have these workforce challenges that they're trying to fill certain skills. And I think that the misconception a lot of time is that automation, especially consumers think that automation is bad for the economy, that's bad for jobs. And really what I see is the flip side is that we have so many customers out there that are hiring like crazy, and that through automation the people that they already have working for them are becoming more productive. And so with remote monitoring and analytics, looking at how, for example, someone at Rockwell that has 15 years of experience working with the pulp and paper industry, we have a team of remote monitoring engineers, and each of those individuals has experience in a different customer segment so that they understand, like when they call a customer in the pulp and paper industry to tell them that, a flag went up, that we saw an error on one of their devices, or that we saw some type of activity that appears to us as though it's going to lead to a failure, they actually understand that application and can work with those people at a customer site to help them be more productive and avoid that downtime that they may have had in the past. And that, as automation is helping customers become more productive with every hour of uptime becomes more valuable, and every other hour of downtime becomes more costly. So looking at how we can use people to be more productive as a society, I think is really cool.
That's pretty sick, man. Yeah, you touched on people thinking that automation, kills jobs. That's been kind of an ongoing topic of subject of discussion within the podcast and just within the automation community in general. Is that, does automation kill jobs? Yes. Does it create more than it, kills? Yes, hopefully. And, are those jobs higher paying? Yes, typically, right? But the question is, or not even the question, like people like to bring up, that these tech companies, like if you look at some of the upper ends of like the 1%, the top 1% of 1% earners, like how it's kind of, you know, exponentially getting, the wage gap is getting, the income inequality is getting higher.
Right.
But what you're not considering is, or what people would typically not consider is that everyone is getting better, right? Even the low of, the bottom 99%, the lowest wage earners are earning more now than they were in the past. And not only that, like the quality of life that we have today because of automation, because of technology, is like, a 1920. I think like someone in poverty today is living like a 1920 upper class person. So it's really hard to, maybe hold automation against these problems, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
everyone's winning, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting
So
challenge, and it's something that I think is changing rapidly, and we just have to keep. I think that this is honestly one of the reasons that I came to work at Rockwell in the first place. Is I was interested in automation, but really the culture here is that everyone is always talking about how are the technologies that we're developing, how are they going to make the lives better of the people that we're serving, and so not just a customer, some LLC, or some giant corporation. But whether it's a small business or whether it is a giant corporation, the people that we're actually talking to are still people. I'm going and working with end users on the plant floor, and they're saying, I go and I talk to our remote support staff and say, hey, I noticed that a customer called in, 5 or 6 times about a specific product. Like, can you kind of fill me in on what they were asking about? And now I can go to Joe or Sue at one of our customers and say, hey, I noticed you called about the same product 5 times. Like, why don't we get you some training on that? And that's where I think the automation, I think, can create an opportunity for a lot of jobs that are skilled jobs, but don't require all of that higher education that I think we've seen a lot of the higher paying jobs require for a long time. So I'm really interested to see how that changes as well.
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on online training for people within the industrial automation industry? Um, what are your thoughts on the future of online training for our industry?
I think online training is huge. I know that for me personally, it's been really great to see the way that Rockwell has transformed, even just internally for our own training systems. In that, back in the day, I would have had to probably, go to my manager, prove to my manager why I need to enroll in a specific, training class or something like that. And a lot of the time, by the time I could enroll in a class and prove that I needed that class to do my job better, that class might be a couple of weeks out. If it's a live class, it might be too late for me. And now the moment that I say, hey, I need to understand this a little bit better, I can go and search online whether it's our own intranet, or whether it's just searching on Google, going on to websites like Udemy and Code Academy. Being able to go and learn what I need to know when I need to know it, I think is huge. And I've seen that become really impactful with our customers as well.
Nice. I'm considering launching. Well, I'm not considering it. I'm doing it, but I'm launching a course on LinkedIn video, how to leverage LinkedIn video to advance your career. And I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on it. If it would be smarter to kind of leave it broad to anyone in any career, or if I should focus down on people that are within the engineering space, or maybe even more specifically industrial automation engineering space. How to use LinkedIn video, maybe not to do what I did and have that become your full-time thing, but use it like maybe like people like Chris Lukey, who's used video, would be a perfect example within a company to level up your career. What would your thoughts be on a course like that?
I think that's a message. I think that the message that you have to share is something that you shouldn't limit to one specific industry. For me, I'm in the industrial automation industry, but there were a lot of different industries that I could have seen myself going into out of college, and I could see myself benefiting from your message and your experience, really regardless. I think it would be cool to have a focus on maybe tech in general. But I think that getting too narrow really limits the audience that can benefit from the message. But as you also said, I think it's cool to have examples like what Chris does with his automation happy hour. It's cool to see that get pretty granular and specific in an industry as well.
Manufacturing all stars. I can't wait for the day that I get to be on that show. But who knows? Maybe by the time this airs, I'm talking to Chris Lukey again for Automation Month on the Zack Scriven podcast. Talking to him in like early March, but hopefully by the time this airs, that the episode will have been recorded. Maybe my digital course will be out by then. Planning on getting it out, before then. So end of March is the date. So
very cool. Well, you have to let me know when you launch that because I'd love to check it out.
Yeah. Now I'm holding myself accountable. So that's the other thing that's kind of been interesting about this podcast is that I get to actually kind of document some of these things that I'm working on, as I'm going through it. Like the entire Automation Month itself was really, it started last year, but I really just started remarketing it again for this year, like a week ago. And, I put out an image, tagged a few people that were in it last year. Then I put out a few text posts and I put out videos. I started doing some recordings and sorry about that. My phone's going off. But yeah, so, within a week, I've gotten all these people to, like yourself, to join in the podcast, share their take on the industry, and posting those back out as micro videos and kind of building up to May when everything will officially launch. And I think in that time, I'm also going to change my podcast hosting service. So like right now I'm using Squarespace. I want to switch everything over to using Anchor. Just for simplicity, reduce friction, making it easier to post, and it publishes it, the podcast to all the different sites. So yeah, I'm working on things like that. And, but yeah, definitely the more I focused on industrial automation, the more resonant I feel like I've been able to reach with my message. And so I've just kind of continued to been working that and going to different events like Automation Fair last year, Aviva World, multiple times. I went to Dubai, Aviva World. I'm going to the CSIA in end of April, early May, the Control System Integrator Association Executive Conference. So we'll be talking with other system integrators in the field and, having interviews for the Zack Scriven podcast Automation Month. And then I'm going to South Africa, which I don't know if we talked about that yet on this podcast. I'm getting confused because I'm talking to so many people a day that sometimes I forget what we've talked about or not, but
very cool, man.
That's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Very cool. I definitely, there's nothing wrong with getting a little niche, right? I know that for me, it's especially in the day of, seeing hundreds of videos posted on LinkedIn every day, seeing something that I know when I click on it, it's going to be a bit more relevant for me also, definitely, makes an impact when I go onto social media, especially that professional social media like LinkedIn. So I think that what you're doing with industrial automation is great. And I look forward to keeping up with it in the future.
Thanks, man. So if Rockwell was one of the major tech companies, which company would Rockwell be in your opinion, and why?
Well, to be honest, I think that Rockwell is the major tech company that consumers don't know about, right? When I started realizing, I don't know that I could classify us as any other, because when I really started realizing just how many of the day-to-day things I touch and buy are made with Rockwell, is pretty amazing. And I don't know that there's much else like it.
Dude, you crushed that answer. Shame on me for trying to put Rockwell or just any industrial tech company in the box of a regular tech company. I mean, we're actually out there making the world work. and not just building software, but building software is important, but also connecting with the real world, connecting people to devices, devices to devices, people to their products that they want is being done through companies like Rockwell.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about Rockwell is that though maybe 90% of my friends and family outside of Rockwell don't really understand what we do. Whether someone's cutting unpackaging a ham or a turkey at Thanksgiving or Christmas, or opening up a Hershey bar, or cracking a bottle of beer on a Friday night. It's pretty rewarding, looking at that and knowing that Rockwell made that happen.
So what's Milwaukee like?
Milwaukee's pretty cool. I mean, I love. It has a really interesting culture here, and I grew up outside of Chicago. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I've experienced a lot of different cities. Milwaukee has a really interesting culture. It's growing quickly. As I think a lot of people know, it has a really strong like German culture, but it has a really strong city identity, I think. And it's really kind of a hidden gem. I don't know if I told you this. I'm actually moving to Boston in a week from today.
Oh,
I'll
wow.
be shipping out to Boston, and that's where I'll be continuing in this role of customer success with all of our customers out in the Northeast.
Sweet, man. Man, it's got to be cold up there though.
In Boston
And in
and in
Milwaukee, I mean,
Milwaukee, yeah.
it was like minus 20 last week or something.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, we got down to. I'm trying to remember now whether what was wind chill and what was. It definitely got down to negative 49 wind chill one night. But that
Wow.
is an extreme that I don't think we see very often here. But it's definitely a brutal winter. I'm looking forward. If people keep asking me if I'm ready for the Boston winters, and I say, you realize that we live in Milwaukee, right? Because I think Boston's known for that, but it's actually a bit more mild than here.
Yeah, and I think I remember seeing a picture of the clock tower building with the temperature on it, and it was like minus 17.
Yeah,
The Allen Bradley Rockwell headquarters right there in Milwaukee.
yeah. There were a lot
What
of
do you think
people
of the?
here. Sorry, there were a
Go
lot
ahead.
of people here that it normally doesn't get into the negatives except at night. There were a lot of people that weren't really sure if that negative was going to work. I was pretty confident. I don't think that an automation company like Rockwell would let that one slip.
That's hilarious. So what do you think of the LinkedIn local Milwaukee out there?
I thought it was great. I think that one of the cool things about LinkedIn Local is that you I know that this is the case for me and a lot of my colleagues, is that it's really easy to and it's great to go to events that are focused in a specific industry. That's where you learn a lot about things that you see and touch every day. But going to events like that, where it's really a wider community of engaged professionals that are looking to learn from each other, are looking to expand their horizons. One of my favorite things is going to an event like that, and as much as I love talking about industrial automation with you at that event, I love just as much hearing from all of the other people in Milwaukee that are doing really really cool things that have nothing to do with automation and everything that's happening in social media marketing and just with people that work in food and beverage and just really engaging with a lot of passionate people, I think is one of the best parts about those LinkedIn local events.
So how are you besides like being on the podcast right now and kind of engaging in the online community, how are you using LinkedIn to, you know, build your personal brand and grow your career?
So I think that for me, LinkedIn for the last couple of years has really been a place where I go to learn. And I'm just kind of getting into a place where I'm more interested in using it to also share my own ideas and to engage more directly with other people. And I like that LinkedIn kind of has both of those aspects to it, right? You can enjoy and feel like you're engaged in LinkedIn regardless of how much time you actually spend on it, and whether you're posting all the time or whether you're going on to read what people in your industry are posting, or what your colleagues and your greater network is posting, or whether you're going on there to share your own ideas. I think that everyone has something to get out of it. And for me, I know that that's been a bit of a journey into getting it into more of a mindset of wanting to kind of, share my own perspectives with the world.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of people underestimate just the value of liking or commenting on other people's posts, other industry professionals' posts, what it can do to build your own personal brand without even posting video. That just being a part of that conversation could really do a lot for, you know, engaging, building your network, and leveling up your career. So that's good to see you starting to leverage that more, and I'll be excited to see more videos and content coming from you in the coming years. So
Absolutely. Same to you.
um, so what are your thoughts on the going to Mars with Elon Musk and SpaceX?
I'm not that in tune with it. I just saw recently that I think our a Mars rover was just declared dead, right? Up on Mars.
I did not
It
see
was
that.
I think it
No.
was a NASA rover. It might have been a post it might have been an older post, but I saw recently that there was just and I can't remember if it was called Discovery or what the name of it was, but there was a Mars rover that was recently caught in a sandstorm, and I guess after 6 to 10 months of trying to regain communications, NASA um, uh, lost communications with a rover that they had sent up in the mid 2000s. But just going through and reading that article, which actually I found on LinkedIn, and seeing that sending an automated device there, NASA was able to collect tens or even hundreds of thousands of photos of Mars and just learn a massive amount. The possibility of being able to send people there to go and study that themselves, I think is pretty awesome.
Where would you estimate? I'm asking, guess this. Where would your guesstimate be of the first person on Mars? What year?
Um, I'm gonna go with 2024.
Wow, that's optimistic. I like it. I think that's a good. It's 5 years, so it'd be amazing to see what happens in 5 years. But and I think SpaceX is already planning missions to there by then. So who knows? The BFR might be fully operational. I just saw Elon Musk posted a picture of the actual engine. I think it was the Raptor engine that's going to be used for that rocket, and it passed all the tests. So it's that plan is strangely starting to materialize into history.
Well, if there's anything that I think that we should all have realized now about Elon Musk is that defying expectations is in his nature, for good or for bad. So yeah, I'll
I
keep an
think
eye
the
on
only
it.
reason he's fascinated with doing it is because he wants to prove people wrong.
He's done it over and over again. So someone told him he couldn't sell flamethrowers online, and I'm pretty sure he did that. So
Yeah, that's the example I was thinking of too. He's like, on the Joe Rogan Experience, he was saying, I told people don't buy this flamethrower. Like, you should not do it.
He did. He said it's a bad idea. It's extremely dangerous, and I think they sold out like within a day. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, no,
he's
we'll see.
he's confident that you can sell your home and buy a one-way ticket to Mars. That's what he wants to be able to do. So,
I'm not sure that I'll do that anytime soon, but I'll be sure to tune in to hear what those that do at some point experience.
so at Rockwell, how how is it that I guess, is there certain areas where you feel like you're maybe not okay to talk about, or like because Rockwell kind of wants to maintain its image, just being big company in general, how individuals like yourself or like Chris are able to navigate those waters and coming up with their own content, building their own personal brand within a larger company, and some of the challenges that you faced. Because I've gotten that response before where it's like people are like, well, I can't speak on my company's behalf, and not just from Rockwell, but just in general, people are kind of afraid to build a personal voice within a company like that.
I think there's that there's a balance, and I think I'm fortunate, and Chris is fortunate that at Rockwell, I think that I'm really, at least I've had great managers that are willing to support me in building a brand outside of the company. Where I will often maybe go into a bit less detail is things that our customers are doing to make themselves more competitive is something that I typically, wouldn't go live with. But that's where, giving an example like I did earlier of, selling an oven, but selling heat as a service, right? I don't have any customers that sell ovens, but I have customers that sell other OEM machines that are looking to sell that output as a service. And I think that that going out and talking about those type of trends in the industry, I think is important, because the more comfortable our customers, the more comfortable people in general are with those kind of revolutionary ideas of and ways of doing business, I think the more receptive our customers will be when we go in to have those conversations. So I think it's one of the things where, I learned in college, and one of the things that a lot of my mentors and professors in my entrepreneurship classes taught me is that, the old way of doing business is to come up with an idea and to keep it secret until you can put it on shelves. And how many companies have we seen fail because they, I actually just saw a post the other day, and not that Airbus is necessarily failing, but I saw a post the other day on LinkedIn about the Airbus A380. And that they spent, I think estimates are upwards of $25 billion in development of that airplane. And I think that finally launched, the project started in 1995. It finally launched in 2007. And they just announced that they're going to cease production in 2021. So for a $25 billion investment in product development, the overall production run of that aircraft is going to be 14 years, which I think is considerably shorter than anyone would have expected or hoped. And I'm not necessarily saying that product was a result of that kind of secrecy or keeping the hard cards held close. But going out and talking about what you're doing and getting feedback from others, from customers, and really understanding how you can best position yourself to solve their problems, I think is ultimately going to lead anyone to success. So that's kind of my perspective. Usually, is will what I'm saying help advance this industry, and will it help advance my customers in being more receptive to new ideas?
Yeah. I'm starting to see more like co-marketing opportunities where, like let's say you go in and do a customer success story for a company. It's not only marketing Rockwell, but it's also marketing that company itself. Like what comes to mind is you guys worked with Milwaukee Brewing Company, I believe, and they're using Allen Bradley PLCs, the control logics, and it was kind of like a case study, success story video on LinkedIn, and I thought that was really cool. Also, like I think you saw on the Super Bowl, kind of not in our industry, but there was like a Bud Light commercial, I believe, that was also a commercial for Game of Thrones. So you're kind of starting to see some co-marketing efforts that, maybe that's going to start making its way into industrial automation and, videos like the ones that I create, like the ones that your guys' marketing team creates, just telling stories. And yeah, I don't know.
I think, no, I think that's a really good point. And what I'm starting to see a lot, at least with Rockwell and our customers, is we're getting into a space where more and more customers are being seen less as customers and more as partners. And that
Yeah.
when you look at the value that, say, a consumer gets from, to use your example earlier, from having clean water, a city being able to capitalize on the fact that, like, hey, we worked with this advanced technology company to ensure that as the population in this Florida town explodes, that we're able to keep up with providing clean water, and we're doing that by being forward thinking. Whether it's that or whether it's a consumer good, I think that as the lines are become blurred between the value that our customers providing to their end user, and that really Rockwell is providing to their end user through that customer. I think that as those lines become blurred, we're going to see more and more of those co-marketing opportunities.
Where do you see Rockwell in 5 years?
I see Rockwell in 5 years as, obviously our products are always going to be the keystone of the way that we do business, right? Helping customers have reliable operations, and being as productive as possible. But I think that, as you mentioned earlier, integrating those products in with services, and with directly providing our own expertise. I see the servitization of more and more products. I see remote monitoring and machine learning and virtualization being a much bigger part of the way that we do business. Already is becoming a huge part of the way that we do business. I'm sure that you're aware of the investment that Rockwell made in PTC. And for those that are listening, if you're a design engineer and you've ever used Creo or anything like that, or if you are interested in if you're interested in virtual reality or augmented reality, and you're familiar with ThingWorx, you're probably familiar with PTC or something that PTC does. And Rockwell made an investment in PTC because we see that virtualization, helping customers that are already collecting a ton of data, but actually getting to a place where they can make actionable decisions with that data. That is who I see Rockwell being in the future, is a company that can, with reliable products, help you maintain uptime, but through support and the integration of networks and infrastructure with the IoT, being a partner along the way with our customers more than we ever have before. You know what? I actually lost your audio.
Sorry, I had myself muted. Yeah. So, what are some events that you're looking forward to going to this year?
Of course, Automation Fair again. I'm going to. I'll be there next November.
It's in Chicago this year.
Yeah. Yep. Should be in Chicago this year. That's right. We were in Philly this past year, so we'll be in Chicago this year. So I'll be at Automation Fair, of course. And gonna, this past year I was at Pack Expo. That was a really cool event in Chicago. I'm not sure I'll make it to that event again this year, since I'll be on the East Coast, but I'm going to be looking for more and more opportunities to get engaged in events out that way.
I think PTC had one in Boston last year. I think it was like ThingWorx, or I forget the name of the event, but maybe that one would be a good one to go to.
Yeah, they're headquartered in Boston, so I'm looking forward, especially as more and more of our customers are buying solutions and investing in solutions that are created through our partnership with PTC. And I start working with those customers to do that. PTC has their own customer success organization as well. It's a little different than what we do at Rockwell, but ultimately our goal is to help our customers fully adopt new technologies and make sure that they're getting value out of that. I very much look forward to getting plugged in with PTC out in Boston and being a leader in that space with Rockwell.
So does Rockwell have their own offices, or are you integrating into the PTC offices, or?
We do have our own offices out there. Yeah, so we have two offices in Boston. I'll be in a sales office, and we also have a development office just north of Boston.
Oh, very cool. So you'll have to check out LinkedIn Local Boston and some of the folks over there that I went to that event last year. It's really good event put on in Boston.
Absolutely.
So do you have any questions for me or for the audience?
Well, you talked a little bit about what you're getting into this space with getting into some e-learning and some training. What are other things that you hope to build in your brand in the next year?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Um, hmm. Yeah, so I'm really focusing on the podcast right now and continuing to deliver results for my clients where I do video production and video marketing on LinkedIn within the industrial automation space. So continuing to focus on that, and I really view my clients as, like you said, kind of more like partners. So it's really kind of like a co-marketing effort where the more exposure my clients get, the more exposure that I get through being associated with marketing those companies. So, companies like Flow Software, companies like Intellic, working with them to make videos and share their products and, tell a story for them. Continuing to do things like that, continuing to go to events, maybe speaking at a few more events this year. That's one thing I want to start doing. Um, and then just overall in general, one of the major themes of the content that I do and why I do it is, to serve God, to build, like the kingdom here on earth, like by doing the work of God. And so I do have that underlying faith to everything that I do, but I don't necessarily talk about it in all the things that I do, but that's always there. So, yeah, actually, I started another channel where I'm doing daily Bible like reading sessions. So I'm going to read it in 365 days. So I was originally doing that under my main media channel, but I broke that off to, like I said, kind of further focus down on the industrial automation niche. And then my Bible and religious content could be on another channel. So then that way it's not too confusing. But yeah, it's just a learning process, and I don't think I'll ever quite have it figured out. But it's been pretty exciting so far, and it's starting to really more so take shape and kind of like, it's like you're taking a seed and you're getting it to sprout, and then you're planting it, and it's now like I'm just starting to plant it, and I feel like it's just starting to kind of take root on its own, and so it's pretty exciting time right now for me.
How would you, kind of on that point about taking some of the content that you create with more of a religious focus and separating that from your, kind of your brand as someone focused on industrial automation. How do you kind of come to the decision of that, or how do you see what challenges do you see, I guess, with building various, kind of segregated brands into the future?
Ugh. I mean, it's tough. It is a lot of work, and I can't do all of those things at once to the fullest. Gosh, that's a tough one. If I knew that, then I'd know exactly what to work on and focus my efforts on. Um, yeah, it's I look at people like Sean Cannell. He has a very strong presence in video, online video, using video to build your influence. And he also helps creators out with tech tips and reviews. But he also has a underlying theme of his religious belief to his content, and it's kind of over time started to appear more and more. Like actually, he tweeted, and I went to go see him give a Sunday service at a church here in Anaheim while he was on his book tour, YouTube Secrets. So, he's actually, he's like where I'm at, but he's a few years ahead. So I'm learning from him. I'm part of his online course on how to actually use these tools to get those outcomes that I'm looking for, how to launch my own digital product, how to do YouTube SEO and things like that. And now he's like hosting his own conferences and, has a 7-figure business doing this kind of thing. So it's cool to have mentors like that and be able to follow. But like I said, he also does have that shared underlying faith. And I've been a little bit more vocal about it. And so it's just finding that right volume level, right? Because too much, then I'm going to be like turning people off, because then they're like, all right, well, I didn't want just a religious channel, The podcast has been really cool about being able to just openly talk about things like that, and not feel like I'm, pushing an agenda or anything like that,
Yeah, and I think that, that's something that I've wondered about personally as I've gotten involved in what I would call more like passion projects, right? So like I got engaged. There's a really cool group. I'd encourage people to go check it out, called the Urban Ecology Center here in Milwaukee. And the Urban Ecology is a group that started in the 1990s, and their goal was to get kids, and now really with a family focus, get people in an urban environment exposed and more aware of the ecological opportunities, and really just nature around them, but more of like in an urban environment. And I know that, having being passionate about things like that, while also maintaining that brand of someone that's fully engaged in industrial automation, has been something that I've thought about. And I think that a lot of people are probably, wondering, how can I be vocal and engage with multiple communities without necessarily, and I don't know that alienating would be the right word, but without diluting,
diluting your message.
Exactly. Without diluting your message. So I think that that's definitely, I'm sure that there are more than just the two of us out there wondering how to strike that balance.
I'm a good example on what not to do. I tend to err more on the side of less filtering and less focus, but that's also some things that it's also part of my brand. People know that when they listen to my podcast, they're gonna get random questions. They're gonna get like abrupt changes in topics, because that's kind of the way that I take things, and it gives a unique outcome. Like the other day I had Rob Howes rapping on the podcast. That doesn't happen by having a list of predefined questions. It just kind of happens naturally. But yeah, so because like having the focus though has helped though. So I've always that's always kind of been one of the complaints about my content is that it is very personal, but it's also been one of the benefits too. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Sorry I lost you there.
Yeah, no problem. And I got to run in a couple minutes. So you want to kind of close things out?
Yeah, man. What's a closing statement? Close it out. Or where can people reach you, and what's a closing statement for the podcast?
Yeah, well, I mean, if people want to reach me, LinkedIn is probably the best way. So if you look me up, fortunately, one of the few benefits of having a very unique spelling of a unique and confusing spelling of my last name is that it's very easy to find me on social media. So you find me on LinkedIn, Mike Martinez, Martenas. And feel free to message me, connect with me. I'd love to chat really about anything, and especially about industrial automation, or content marketing and customer success. I guess for closing statement, keep doing what you're doing, Zach. It's awesome. I love to see people that are passionate about what they do, and I guess that's the same thing that I would say to everyone that's listening is finding your passion is a continual journey, and I think that being willing to experiment, as I think that you're doing with your channel, your brand, and the content that you create. I think that one of the things that one of my mentors says often is live every day with that childlike excitement, right? The way that you got excited about things when you were a child, that curiosity, try to find something to do in your day-to-day life that lets you feel like that again. I think that if we all do that, we'll have awesome content and ideas to share with the world.
Thank you so much, Mike. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks for being on
the podcast.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.